Peterson. Nierenberg. Schroer. Weber.
With 4 members present, we have a quorum. We'll now go into the hearing portion of our meeting. This is Senate Bill 326 we'll be hearing today. Senator Brown, please come forward and begin when you are ready.
For the record, I am Senator Ben Brown of the 26th District, and I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 326. Senate Bill 326 addresses DEI loyalty oaths that have been used in recent years as a prerequisite to employment at universities. Under this act, public institutions of post-secondary education shall not require any applicant, student, employee, or contractor to submit a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. Public institutions of post-secondary education are also prohibited from giving preferential consideration in admissions or employment on the basis of individual or entity submission of an unsolicited statement relating to a discriminatory ideology. DEI statements are not designed to identify teachers who have experience supporting disadvantaged students. They've been used as a political litmus test, serving as screens for professors who put a partisan political agenda above research or teaching expertise. Candidates are often asked to describe how their teaching philosophy, research agenda, and service interests advance DEI, a highly ideological agenda. In other words, they're expected to commit to shaping their teaching and research priorities around DEI's radical ideology. This diverts faculty energy away from teaching and research and places it more on political indoctrination. Would you rather have scientists in our state focusing their time and energy on politics or advancing science and medicine? Hiring practices like these could also discourage highly qualified subject matter experts from even applying for jobs that have no or should have no political social justice component. Florida and other states have already in the process of uprooting this sort of caustic academic culture entirely, dismantling DEI programs in colleges and universities statewide. Higher education should be centered on the integrity of the academics, excellence, pursuit of truth, and teaching kids to think for themselves, not on imposing an orthodoxy. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee for the senator? Senator Nierenberg.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Great.
Good. Beautiful morning. No surprise, I don't love this bill for a few reasons. This is a lot of language that would be added to statute, and I just really am curious as to if this is happening today. So you, on page 3, section 2 here, it says no institution shall compel, require, induce, solicit any applicant, employee, student, or contractor to endorse any discriminatory ideology. Senator, is that happening in any institution of higher learning in the state of Missouri?
So I have a few examples, and this is from last year when I presented this bill, and I searched for maybe 5 minutes, found several different applications. There was one from Missouri State.
What year was that,
under
Senator?
a different president, they have since ended that requirement.
Okay.
There's one from UMSL, UMKC. I think some of these policies have changed. I haven't looked this year to see what's currently posted as of today. But the policies seem to kind of ebb and flow along with just kind of the flow of national and state politics as well. So regardless of how many schools are actively requiring this at this moment in time, it's something that has been required, and I imagine would be in the future as well as things change, and something that I feel that we need to prevent now.
Okay, well, Senator, I would like to see any current proof that this is happening today in the state of Missouri.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's interesting always when we talk about our role of government, and this is the epitome of big government, coming in and swooping in on every ounce of an application. If this is happening today in any of our institutions, Senator, I certainly would like to see it. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee for the senator? Seeing none, thank you, Senator. We'll now move into testimony in favor. Who is the first person that would like to testify in favor of this bill? Welcome. State your name and begin when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. James Harris, representing Cicero Action and Do No Harm Action, here to testify in support of this. I think if you look big picture, why this bill is good policy is, I look back in college and it was a time where you could exchange ideas, had lots of friends, we had different opinions, had time to learn about things that maybe were different. And I look back now and I think there's a lot of things, if I were to go to college today, you really couldn't have that free debate, that free different discussions that occurred. And where a lot of this can happen is if you start putting litmus on who can apply for jobs. And if we can do it for one group today, dangerously it could be for another group in a few years. And that's not what college should be about. I think Mizzou banned this in 2023 on job applications, but even, it's a huge system, so this is not at all a critique of University of Missouri at all. But even after that, in 2024, it was maybe a position didn't matter, office support assistant 3, I'm not really sure what that is. But kind of had their, I would call it a kind of a woke DEI statement. I'm happy to read it if anyone has or distribute it. But I think the big picture is when you stifle debate, you put litmus tests on the type of faculty that can hire, whether it's accounting, pick the major, people will just go elsewhere. And that ultimately might lead to not as qualified a staff and also where students feel they really can't have that free exchange of ideas and debate. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Continuing testimony in favor. Is there anyone else that would like to testify in favor of this legislation? Seeing none, is there anyone here to testify in opposition of this legislation? Please come forward at this time. Welcome. State your name and begin when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Paul Wagner. I represent the Council on Public Higher Education, which means I represent all the public universities and state technical college. I do not represent the University of Missouri system. We do not require any of the DEI statements for any student who's applying, anyone who's applying to work, any contractor who's seeking to do business with us. However, we do still have concerns about this bill. Primarily, there are a lot of vague terms. There are a lot of opportunities for people to take even just oral statements and have a cause of action, allegedly against universities. So when you have a combination of vagueness and hearsay teamed up with liability for public institutions, we find that pretty problematic. I know that I've talked to Senator Brown before about the example that he mentioned at Missouri State. That was one, I don't even know, it was like a secretary or something that was a third-party search or a third-party resume finder that had, some kind of boilerplate language on their thing. I think that if this was common practice, I represent 11 institutions, very large organizations that are hiring and admitting students all the time. University of Missouri is about as big of all mine combined. If this was common practice, there'd be a stack of examples all the way to the ceiling. And I've never seen that big stack of examples that would be evidence that this is common or current practice. However, we still do have concerns about the legal liability we'd be exposed to. I'll just give you one quick example real quick. Where it mentions marginalized groups, so it says can't mention or take into account someone's views on marginalized groups. Now, what is a marginalized group? Different people are going to have different ideas about who they think a marginalized group is. And are we talking about marginalized groups in the context of an entire society, or marginalized groups in the context of a college campus? different people are going to have very different ideas about what is or isn't a marginalized group. And if we don't have clarity on that, then we wouldn't know what is or isn't running afoul of this would this become law. So I'll just leave it at that. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Proceed.
Good morning. Thanks for being with us today.
Yep.
One of the things that was mentioned in the opening comments was that this is something similar has been implemented in the state of Florida. I don't know if you're aware of the law that was passed there, but I'm just curious as to the ramifications on higher education there when things like this are passed. Are fewer people going into the field? Are they struggling with keeping professors in the classroom? I know in Missouri we certainly have struggled with this for many factors. Obviously, decreasing enrollment, universities have to make tough decisions. But I'm curious as to how this would, anything, whether, again, wherever the intentions are, has some unintended consequences to this.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with Florida's. I think I saw the headline, but I didn't click on it.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I click on too much as it is. As far as the way this bill is set up, our concern is that people. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that don't bother with politics too much, but for people who are on the political spectrum, anywhere on the political spectrum, they might find causes to sue public entities for almost anything. It just opens us up to so much legal liability on a basis of things that are really just vague and could just be hearsay. I think it just puts the state and our institutions at risk. And there are probably ways that could be clarified that could calm us down, or make it a little bit more palatable. But that would take some work.
Yeah, and that's just kind of looking at this. Obviously, the penalty provisions, if you will, on page 5 are fairly vague as in terms of what we typically see in legislation. But I guess those are some concerns I have. Essentially, anybody can bring suit. The institution then has to, if cover everything from the attorney fees to court costs, but even more so is if something was even as minor as possible, could ban somebody from employment for quite a long time. And again, maybe this is something that the applicant chose to include because of a certain research project they did in a certain area, and somehow it falls under one of these very vague definitions. So I'm just concerned. I think our institutions are have enough struggles right now as it is. Obviously, rising cost is a huge issue that they're grappling with right now. This is one more thing that I feel like would just, really doesn't do anything to improve education outcomes for our Missouri students, and that's why I'm going to continue to oppose the bill. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify in opposition? Please remember to fill out a witness form. Thank you.
Good morning, committee members. Sage Quorum on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union of Missouri here in opposition. Our concerns really mirror a lot of what we heard in the last testimony. Really, this proposed bill is going to create, potentially inadvertently, a chilling effect on speech. Because of some of the vague and broad language in the bill and with the penalty provisions that were just pointed out, this is really going to cause educators or a variety of employees to steer clear of complex topics because it's unclear when it could cross into prohibited speech or that they could risk incurring some of those penalties. And those are really those are the main points of our opposition. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Okay, see none. Anyone for informational purposes, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Timothy Faber, and I would generally support this bill, but I do have some concerns for it. In 173.21761.3, it lists religion as an immutable characteristic. While religion is listed in the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act, we cannot say that it is immutable. Indeed, if religion is immutable, how can we have religious freedom and religious liberty? Furthermore, I have known some, as perhaps you have as well, or perhaps even are one, of the many people in our nation who have changed their religion over the years. Perhaps they were an atheist and became a Christian, or perhaps they were Muslim and became an agnostic, or whatever the case might be. The point is, religion is not immutable. Though protected in the Missouri non-discrimination law, it protects people from discrimination due to religion and does not say that religion is immutable. The same is true later in that same section, in subsection 4, the reference to gender as an immutable characteristic. There are those who speak of gender as being fluid. If it's fluid, how can it be immutable? It can't be both. If it is not immutable, then it should not be included in this list. But if there is no gender fluidity, then though it may be immutable, it would be synonymous with the sex and therefore redundant, and no need to list it here as well. Otherwise, I would support the bill, but I do have those concerns on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else for informational purposes only? Okay, seeing none. Senator, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, and I'd like to say, I'm happy to work with anyone that has input on any way that the language could be tightened up to make sure that it doesn't have any unintended consequences. And just like to emphasize that this has no impact on what an employee of an academic institution does once hired. It doesn't restrict what they're even able to say in the course of teaching a student or anything like that. This simply applies to the hiring process and preventing discrimination or preferential treatment of one group due to their beliefs over another. And so I'm happy to work with anyone and make sure that this has the intended effect while mitigating any unintended things. Well,
Thank you very much, Senator. That concludes the hearing on 326. I make a motion that we adjourn. Second. Have a second. We are adjourned.